we had to learn a dance, and we went to all the sororities and we did this performance. After every dance, you'd go, you'd pick a girl out, you'd try to get her number. And this is a big topic among the fraternity culture, Hollywood. It's hazing, right? Everyone gets hazed. Whoosh. Today, I'm going to be talking about my experience being in a fraternity at an American university. I feel like this is going to be big. Lots of people don't have this context, and the people that do have the context, I share the experiences with. So this would be good to share some of the love. For those of you who don't know, a fraternity is a social group at an American university. So there's over 1,000 different fraternities with different Greek letters. You've probably seen them on the internet somewhere. There's really like 20 or 30 like main ones that are at pretty much every single college, and then there's hundreds of kind of smaller ones and stuff like that. So at the college I went to, I joined one that's kind of in a certain area of the country. So it's not one of the big ones, like the top 20, but it doesn't matter because it's different at every single university, and it's different based on every single, 4 years, because those are the people you're hanging out with in college, and it's also different on the people that you're closest to, that you join the fraternity with. So it varies, and the fraternity that I joined was exactly what I needed when I went to college. It was absolutely perfect. So zero regrets there. Fraternity culture is often in like Hollywood and the movies, it's often looked at as like crazy people, drunk people, just going crazy, and there is a bit of that, of course. You're in college, you're doing whatever you need to do to have a good time. But a lot of it that's overlooked in the real life stuff is going to be what I'm going to be talking about today. So there's a little bit of both, but it gets a lot of hate just because people look at the people and they obviously they prejudge them, which is totally fine. That's how the world works. But I'm here to shed some light on the whole entire experience that I had, at least. So this is going to start with recruitment. So in order to join one of these social clubs, one of these fraternities, you have to be selected and get what's called a bid card. So you have to go through a recruitment process, whether that's formal or informal, and then they have to hand you a bid card, which means we extend our invitation for you to join our organization, essentially. And at our school, the school I went to, there was formal rush for sororities for girls and informal rush for fraternities. Deep in the South, they have kind of both. They have formal for male and females for fraternities and sororities, but mine was informal for dudes. So for sororities, formal rush looks like 1 week before school, and you go and you tour every single sorority around the whole thing, and you see which one connects with you the most, and you have like interviews, and girls get all pampered up and stuff like that. It's not how it worked for fraternities. It is literally just, hey, we're going to a baseball game in the summer, come and hang out with us. Or, hey, we're throwing an event, we're getting ice cream, we're doing whatever, whatever rush event they were doing. And they would just invite someone, whether that's through the public portal that you'd apply through the university, whether that's through referrals, whether you know someone in the fraternity, stuff like that. I knew a couple people in the fraternity. I went to high school with two of them. One of them was my best friend at the time's older brother was in this fraternity. And also one of the people that I worked with who was kind of like a manager. I was a lifeguard. He was like a senior guard at the place, at the pool, was in this fraternity as well. But I also had connections to other fraternities, so I was like kind of moving around. I seen what I liked, what I didn't like. And I ended up choosing a specific fraternity that was my best friend's older brother's fraternity, and I was super pumped. And I was very adamant about being all in this process, just because that's how I live my life. And so because I would go to so many recruitment events, because I would hang out with the guys, I basically knew the actives already. They actually invited me to a leadership summit for active members before I was even an active member, which is actually crazy looking back on it. I would not even support that if I was an active member. But they were like, hey man, you're really cool. We know you're going to be a freaking leader. We know you're going to have, be a big part of this organization. So before you even start, we want to invite you to this leadership summit. So we hopped in the car, drove 8 hours, and I had a good time bonding with some of the older guys, which was really really cool for me, really fun. So, yeah, and then the events is just the recruitment events that people would have. It's just, hey, we're going to the baseball game, or we're throwing this party, come on and hang out. And so I had bids from a few different fraternities, chose not to rush or not to pursue other ones, and ended up choosing on the one that I did, which was really cool because I came in with two of my absolute best friends as well. So we came in all knowing each other, and then we got to meet a few other people as well. How the process works after recruitment is you go through something called pledgeship, which is your first semester, or however long it is that you're. For us, it was a semester. First semester you're in college, so right when you come, and you go through this new pledge class. So you're not an active member of the organization of the fraternity yet. You have to go through the pledge process, which is basically like you got to put in the groundwork to, you got to sit on the bench before you're playing in the game. So my pledge class was with 10 people, which is smaller, than a lot of other organizations, especially universities with more people. But it was perfect for us because instead of there being like sex and sects, sex, and don't get that confused. And like instead of there being like people isolated in their own groups, we were all just like super tight. There's 10 of us, just freaking homies, right? We weren't really spread out in any way. There wasn't groups or anything like that. So just to give you a little layout of the fraternity that I was in, it was 3 stories tall. And so we got assigned a roommate. It was my first roommate was my best friend in college. And we actually had one of the coolest rooms because it was one of the only rooms in the whole entire fraternity that had a little bunk bed on it. So, but we didn't sleep in the rooms. This is important. We had what's called the racks on the 3rd floor. So the racks is where everyone would sleep. It was this huge, like laid out, basically not attic, but just 3rd floor with no walls, and it was just bunk beds, bunk beds, bunk beds, bunk beds, and everyone would go up and you had your bed and you could, put a sheet over it to get some privacy or whatever you wanted to do. But the room, we threw a couch under the bunk bed, and then we threw like a mattress up on top, which was cool. So our room was kind of the hangout room because people could be up top, people could be on the couch. We had a couple chairs in there. We had our desks in there to get some work done, schoolwork done. So that's how the room laid out that I stayed in the first semester. And there's this really cool thing. So like there's a lot of structure when you come in to the fraternity. There needs to be certain roles done like with the actives to run the organization, and there also needs to be certain roles done in the pledge class to make sure there's communication. So I got voted to be pledge class president, which is pretty cool. Basically, I was the leader of the 10 pledges. I would organize everything, make sure everything was on time, make sure everything was getting done, because there's got to be some kind of a leader, right? In order for stuff to have organization and actually get done. So that was really cool that I was able to be voted into that position and serve my brothers around me. And then right when school started, we had this thing called sorority serenades, which is just a way for everyone to bond in the pledge class, but also for you to meet people in different fraternities, different sororities, stuff like that. So we had to learn a dance. We got one of the active's girlfriends made up a dance and taught us the dance. And we had to do this little performance, and we went to all the sororities and we did this performance while all the other fraternities were also going to the sororities, and we were performing in front of their new pledge classes as well. So it was cool. After every dance, you'd pick a girl out, you'd try to get her number, and it was a really fun time. Good way to bond, good way to kick off the social aspect of college and everything like that. So that was fun. And then this is a big topic among the fraternity culture, Hollywood. It's hazing, right? Everyone gets hazed. And I want to shed some light into my experience in getting hazed. I'm not going to go too deep into this because I don't want to get anyone in trouble. It wasn't that bad. Like, I have a mindset, and my whole pledge class had a mindset of like, we're just in this for a semester. This is part of the game, right? When we're actives, like it'll be fun. We'll be on the other side of it. A lot of people are sensitive these days, and they get overstimulated, and they like, man, they get too emotional, and they get offended. They might drop out, right? And at the end of the day, you don't really want those kind of people to be your brothers anyway, because if they can't handle that, like when something real happens in life, what are they going to be able to handle? So we like it wasn't that bad, right? We would just do whatever the actives told us to do, and they didn't abuse that power. They didn't make us, do anything crazy like you see in the movies, and like maybe some other fraternities that we heard of did. But the main thing we had to do was we had to share a lot of the cleaning duties with a few of the actives that were really their names were just on the list to make it look like they weren't actually hazing, but we were getting all the cleaning done in the house, which is totally fair. I mean, we're basically auditioning to be in this house filled with 40, 50 dudes. Like, yeah, I'll clean it for a semester to get it cleaned for me for the next, 6 or 7. That makes sense to me. So none of us had a problem with it. I mean, there was definitely some things that we had to do that we didn't want to do in that regard and in other regards, but it wasn't that bad. And I would get pissed off when anyone would complain, or when I'd hear people at other fraternities and they were just like would complain about what they had to do. I'm like, man, it's just a part of it. Like, this is fun. Like, this is a brotherhood, you know. So that's that. I'm not gonna go too deep into details there. We also had this thing called a pledge board, which was really cool. So we had a leader, which is the first vice president of the fraternity, and his whole job was to make sure that we, one, kept on top of our grades, two, activated in the fraternity, and three, made sure that we were bonding as a pledge class. So he had us do this thing called a pledge board, which you might have seen in the movies. Basically just a list of items that you need to cross all of them off, and you need to get them all done. And there were a few things that were super important on there. There were a few things we didn't want to do on there, and there were a few things that were super fun on there. There were a few things that needed to happen to make sure we stayed on top of our studies and our schoolwork on there. One of them was we had to find a way to get a Christmas tree and bring it in the house during Christmas. We're like, where the heck are we going to get a freaking Christmas tree? So we had to find someone with land around the area, and we had to go and chop it down and freaking bring it into the fraternity, tie it up, pull it through these doors that we had. And it was a fun experience, right? It's like, you got to do it. It's hazing. No, not really. Like, it's just like we had to do it, and it was fun. Stuff like that. We had to take like a video or picture montage of us at like some of the events, which was cool because we could look back on that, look at all these fun experiences. But we also had to do some stuff like make sure we're attending class at 95% rate. This is all on the board, so you have some structure that you're looking at. And we got all of it done. It was a really good time. Anything that we didn't get done was taken care of a little bit later. This thing called Sneak. This is a great story. So we had this fun little game in our fraternity called Pledge Sneak. So what would happen is every single pledge class would choose a weekend amongst themselves and not tell the actives. They would coordinate with another chapter of the fraternity at another college, and they would plan to be out of the house by midnight on Thursday. They're all gone. And then on Friday, in between going to class, until like 5 p.m., so midnight to 5 p.m., they would try to sneak back in the fraternity and steal stuff from the house, not personal items from the actives, but from the house, to make the lives inconvenient of the actives. And then after Friday, they would drive to the other chapter, the other college, the other organization, and stay with them for a weekend. And just another way just to network with other people in your organization, but at a different college. It's really fun, really cool. So our pledge sneak, we planned to go to another college in the state, but that wasn't too far, just because we knew some people over there, and it wasn't too far of a drive, so we could spend the most time over there. So we were out of the house by midnight on Thursday. All night, we stayed up all night Friday, and they knew it was coming too, because here's the thing: you have to bring 2 actives with you on the trip. So you trust the actives. You're like, don't tell them what weekend. But when you're an active, you know that you're just gonna tell your other actives, because it's all a ploy against the pledges. So we stayed up all night. They knew. We're like, how did they know? Obviously, the actives, we told about it to bring them on the trip. Told them, but we stayed up all night. They set up a fire. They stayed out. They were guarding the entrance to the house so that we couldn't get in. And we tried to get in a couple times. A couple people almost got in and got captured by the actives. So if you get captured by the actives, you get thrown into a room, and you get kept in that room until you have to go to class. and then you get let out to go to class. You get escorted by another active. They make sure you go to class. Sometimes they come with you to class to make sure that you don't run away, and then they bring you back to the room. We had some fun stuff regarding that I won't go into, but it involved making sure that they wouldn't leave the room. But yeah, no, some of our guys got caught when we were pledges, and some of them didn't. So we not only had to steal stuff from the house, but we also had to break our boys out of the house, because we can't leave without our boys to go to this other chapter. So what do, right? So we had to break in. We had to try to cause a distraction and break them out, steal like silverware and toilet paper and the keys to the house and stuff like that. So you shut off the water in the house and then padlock it, so they have to call a locksmith, stuff like that. It is really fun, but it's all a ploy against the pledges. If the actives even capture one pledge, which happens pretty much every time, then the pledges, they basically negotiate for the pledges to have to pay a bunch of money to get them back, and then the actives use that money to buy beer and throw a party while they're gone. So that's the whole game. That's the whole entire game, which is fun, right? So that is what it is, and that was a really fun experience that we had. Stayed up all night, falling asleep in class, and then you see an active like waiting outside your class, and you're like, oh no, like they're gonna get me right when I come out. We had one guy, he literally, he saw the actors waiting outside his class, and when the bell rang, he jumped out the window. It was like a 2 or 3 story window. He jumped onto something and jumped out and got away. It was one of my best friends who I pledged with, and we were all just freaking out about it. We're like, no way you got away from them. There are like 3 of them waiting for you in the business building. It's hilarious. So I could tell a million of these stories, but we all sum it up to, this is the most fun we never want to have again. Pledgeship was the most fun that we never want to have again. Looking back at those memories is a fantastic time. So this is all being opposed to just going to college, staying in the dorms, having one roommate, and having a picnic with other dudes in the frickin' dorms. Like, super lame. There's no chance that I was doing that. I was like, I'm joining one or the other. Then once you go through pledgeship, you have an activation ceremony, which I'm definitely not going to disclose any details about because that's secret to the organization. But after you activate, then the next semester you start as an active member, and that's what you stay until you stop paying dues. You have dues you pay every year to stay an active member, be able to come to events, be able to have input, be able to have voting power, and stuff like that. So after I activated, you're also able to hold positions inside the organization. I was just pledge class president. I had a great time. So I then got voted to be second vice president. And the second vice president is in charge of keeping the house clean, house duties, the lawn, everything like that, making sure everything's stocked. And it was just some something I wanted for my resume, some experience that I wanted, some way to give back to the house. And it was really fun. I had a good time assigning cleaning duties and getting out of some myself because I was in charge of it, So I would have to do everything once in a while, but people would try to get in my good graces, and I could see right through it. It's a good time. And then I also eventually, as the years passed, got voted to be first vice president of the fraternity. I wanted to be president, but then I realized that was just a lot of work and not as much fun, and I was kind of a degenerate. So I just wanted to stay at first vice president, which, as mentioned earlier, is in charge of the pledge class, which was a very incredible experience for me because I'm coaching now these guys 2 years younger than me, and I'm in the position where I was looking up to my first vice president when I was a pledge, and I've created friendships that will last a lifetime because of that. I was someone that they looked up to. I was someone that they saw as someone that they could ask advice to. Instead of going to random people in the active body, I was basically the mediator between the two. It was great. So I have lots more stories about that. But as an active member, you get to go to chapter every single week, which is where you have input about the fraternity. You vote on stuff. Pretty boring, but pretty cool. And then I sat at the front table, obviously, because I was on the vice presidency board. So it was fun to be in charge of stuff. There's this thing called whiskey families as well. We had in my fraternity. So there were 4 whiskey families. They were named after different types of whiskey. So there was Knob Creek, there was Crown Royal. I was Canadian Club. So there's these different whiskey families that people would have. And you'd get a pledge son, which is someone who's pledging. They would all get a pledge dad, which is another person that they get to connect with. It's kind of just like a snake draft on who you get to pick. And then we ask them like who they would want, and then you try to match up who they want and who they would get to pick and stuff like that. So I had a pledge dad. Unfortunately, he got kicked from the fraternity pretty early for some other stuff, but I'm very familial. I'm very loyal, and I love the lore of everything. So I was super excited to have a pledge son, and I had a couple, only one activated, but super super proud of him. And essentially, then it'd be another sect inside of the fraternity. So all the whiskey families, you'd have like one or two family nights, was what it was called, family night, a semester, and where you'd just on a Friday or on a weekend where there wasn't much going on, no events, you'd go with your whiskey family, you'd get a bottle of whiskey, and you could drink it however you want, but we would just pass it around and take pulls until it was done on the first one, and then sip on whatever we wanted for the second one. So that was really cool. Got to connect with some people in the fraternity that maybe lived out of the house or that I didn't really know that well just because they were in my same whiskey family. And it literally just trickles down. So I have a pledge dad, I have a pledge grandpa, and it goes up, and it goes up to older people. You can track your lineage. It's pretty fun. Also played in a bunch of intramurals as a fraternity. That was really fun because like the fraternity boys are the most athletic people on the campus generally, typically. Kind of the jocks in high school, stuff like that. That's why they get the bad rap. But no, it was really competitive. I liked playing basketball, but we had some really good basketball players. And so I played flag football, ultimate frisbee, and intramural pool billiards, which was fun. Those are my three. So I had a great time. We did really good in ultimate frisbee, pretty good in flag football. I won some games in intramural pool as well. Then I got bored of it. So, but it was fun at the time. That's really fun way for the actives to bond as well. So besides like going to the gym every day, you'd get to have these sports that you play against the other fraternities. Maybe you know some people on the other team. It gets pretty competitive and pretty stupid. So I also lived in what was called the penthouse. So remember the racks on the third floor. The way it was set up is there was no walls. It was just a bunch of bunk beds, and then on either side of this huge like floor plan were rooms, and our room that was like the party room, kind of like not necessarily like. Well, it was the party room. It was called the penthouse. So I lived up in the top. No one would really ever go to the third floor except for to sleep. And they were bigger rooms. They weren't just 1 and 2 man rooms. They were 6-man rooms, actually. So we'd still have our beds out there in the racks, but we had 2 sides, one with 6 desks dedicated to studying, and one with a bunch of couches, a bunch of Xboxes, 3 TVs lined up in a row, so we could all play video games together. We had a Little Tykes basketball hoop over the trash can. We'd throw beer cans in. No, not beer cans because we were a dry house, actually. There was no alcohol consumed in there at all. So, I don't want to get in trouble there, obviously. Follow all the rules. And, yeah, it was a really fun time to again, bond with even more guys in the fraternity. So I stayed with a couple of my good buddies in there, and then we also had the pledges weren't allowed in there. That was the rule. Pledges weren't allowed in there. I wasn't allowed in there. Pledges weren't allowed in there. And so the one time that they are in there is when an active needs something or invites them in, or so we got to invite some pledges to live with us because that's how it worked out. And so we got to bond with them on an active level instead of an active to pledge level. Really fun times. And that's what it was like living in the house. It was a blast. Just 40 guys studying. I got all A's and B's in college. Most guys did really well. We were in one of the top houses in grades. At least top 10 for sure. We were probably in that 5 to 10 range. So, great times, man. We had a nice piano in the living room. Some people would play sometimes. We called it the tube room. It's basically like stadium bleacher, like wood, and then we put couches on them, and we had a projector, and then a pool table on the other side. So we'd go and play some pool. We'd go and watch any sports games or any movies, or you bring a girl over, you watch a movie, and it's like this movie theater. It was really cool, man. Had a great time living inside the house. But eventually you get older, and eventually you got to move on. So we called them old balls, people who moved out of the house because they got old. And obviously alumnus is when you're no longer an active member. Well, not obviously. Some people might not know that. But alumnus or alumni, the plural, is what it's called when you're no longer paying active member dues. So I moved out of the house for my senior year. I stayed in 3 years, freshman, sophomore, junior, and then my senior year I moved into one of our called out of houses. So we had two main ones. One of them was like more the party one where we would host all of our parties, and you could get a little more rowdy there and maybe break some stuff and it'd be fine. And then the house I lived in, we called 926, and that was kind of more like for maybe weekday little get-togethers or weekday parties or low-key stuff, or maybe like birthday parties or something like that. We had it was like a normal house. It was a nice house actually, but then we had a garage in the back that led out to the back, and that had beer pong in it, darts. We had a back room to like with a projector in it as well, like basically an indoor-outdoor like couch area, and we would bring TVs out there and watch games and stuff like that. So, but as you grow older, like you start to just care less and less about things happening inside the house. You go to chapter less, even if you're paying dues still. You're just like, I'm a freaking senior. I'm about to go into the real world. That was a fun game we played, and I'll still go to some events, but I'm going to detach myself a little bit, and that's just how the natural cycle goes, right? It's like being a senior in high school. It's just like, yeah, you and your senior buds are just hanging out. The freshmen can have all the fun and go to all the assemblies and everything like that. So, I don't know why I added this, but I started to not care. So I started getting into some random stuff. I bought a pair of Heelys because I had them when I was a kid, and I would go to the bars in Heelys. I still have them in my closet. I literally just throw on Heelys, go to the bars, and I rolled up to a cop one time. I was like, this is a big risk that I'm taking right now, but can I get a DUI on these? And he looked at me. He's like, nah, son, you're not going to get a DUI on those. If you're on a bike, maybe. But not on Heelys. And I was like, great, because I am plastered right now. But those are just college times. And I started a longboard too a little bit. I didn't have one, my roommate did. So I would actually go around the campus, and we had a couple hills and a couple spots that were pretty nice. And it was really, really cool to take a longboard and just glide. I would do it at like late at night. It's like at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. And I would just glide down there and take a look at the campus when kind of no one was there. The beauty of because it was a beautiful campus. So I started doing stuff like that, just kind of messing around, attaching myself, and really fun time. Then it was time to graduate because I was a senior, and that was around coronavirus. So second semester, I think started getting popular around December, January of that year of 2020. And I wasn't able to do some of the stuff that I was supposed to do. I skipped the date dash semi-informal over here. So we would have events as actives. We'd have one formal a year in the spring. That's when we would rent big buses, and we would go to get a lake house Airbnb for a weekend and get a boat and dress up in suits and eat dinner. And semi-formals we'd have once a semester. So we'd have fall, spring. And it would just kind of be local, but you'd still like dress up. You'd get like maybe a school bus instead of a charter bus, and you just rent out a place and go eat dinner, and maybe go out to the bars after that. And then day dashes were pretty cool. You basically they wouldn't tell you that we were having that event or that party until like the Wednesday on chapter before the Friday of the party. So you basically had 2 days to try to find a date. So if you didn't have a girlfriend or a girl you were talking to, you had to start going to sororities and looking at girls in your class and going to events like that. So the reason that I went back and included that is because we did not get to go on our senior year formal, which was super disappointing, man, because I really wanted to have that last final send-off experience with my fraternity, and we just weren't able to do it. we were kind of kept up in our house. We were kept up in 926. It was a fun time for sure, actually, because like how it worked. I don't know if you guys remember, but if you were in college, it was like you worked in little pods. So if you lived in a house in college, it was like you and your roommates doing your own stuff, maybe like just throwing a frisbee, staying in your front yard, and then your neighbors would be doing the exact same thing in their front yard. And then when you cross those borders, it would be kind of cool, but you'd stay local. Like you'd stay within like, 3, 4 houses down or something like that. It was just a really weird time. And class was all online, so we barely left the house pretty much. Yeah, it was very peculiar. I hope that never happens again. But being a senior in college, I felt like I was getting the short end of the stick, not being able to go to formal. But really, I feel bad for the people in the class under me, because then they had to live that whole next year like that. It must have been terrible. So they got more taken away than we did. But yeah, and then once you're done being an active, then you stop paying dues and you become an alumnus. And then you and your alumni class can maybe go up, stay at the house, point out your picture on the in the house. We have all these like the class pictures up, and stay at the house, go to a football game if you need to. So fun time, absolutely fantastic, great experience all around. Everyone has a few regrets, but no regrets on like the progression of what happened or the path that I took or anything, like the people I was with. Nothing. I gained a lot out of that whole experience, and that made my transition into college super easy, super seamless. I didn't have to worry about going to social events, making friends, talking to girls, like going to parties, playing sports. I didn't have to worry about any of that. And the class study structure was actually it was very well structured. So we had a study room where you had to utilize it as a pledge, you're forced to, but as an active, you could utilize it, and had, a study bank of like past tests you could practice with. It had computers, it had, a big table, you could invite people over, and even people weren't inside the fraternity, and you could just lay out all your stuff and just use it to study. So we were on top of our grades, but we definitely played hard as well on the other end of things. So I feel bad for like the engineers. I was in business, like it wasn't easy, but like it was pretty easy, especially for me, because that's where my mindset goes. And a lot of the engineers, they worked 10 times harder and got worse grades, had to miss parties and events and stuff like that. So kudos if you went to engineering school in college. I know that stuff is no joke for sure. What did I gain from this whole entire experience? A bunch of stuff. First of all, an incredible amount of social skills. I'm already a social person, but just being implemented straight into a group like that, it makes you feel like people care about you, like you can actually, like you're a part of something, and that builds up your social skills, because you're talking to girls, you're going to events, you're playing sports, and that's stuff that you might not get to do if you're just by yourself in a dorm. It basically forces you to be social. I also gained a lot of leadership experience. I was pledge class president, second vice, first vice. A lot of people liked to gain my input in the fraternity. I was definitely very opinionated, so some people did not want to talk to me about anything whatsoever because they knew what my answer would be. But I'm a very old time kind of guy, so like anything that was like, oh, we have to change things for the new ways, and we can't do that because some people might get offended. I was like, screw that, man. And I did not hold back on that kind of stuff. So I had my kind of group of people behind me on that, and the other side had the other side. But that's what made us a fraternity, man. It was fun. It was lots of fun being able to argue our points like that and come to a conclusion. So I gained lifelong friends doing that. Legitimately lifelong friends. The people I came in with, my best friends, obviously the pledge class that I had around me, the active members that I can contact forever and ever and ever until we die, and the people I lived with, my whiskey family, like all of these lifelong friends that it's just a conglomerate of friendship. And I just can't imagine how I would have got through college without it, because I would have got through college, but it would have been boring. For sure. Unforgettable memories incredible amount of memories. Like all of those stories that I told just like stacked up in here. I don't even know where they're at. I just pull them out randomly. I didn't plan any of this, what I was talking about, except for what I wrote down. But just the stories just come up as they come up, man. And I talk to other people. They remember stuff that I don't remember. I'm like, oh, yeah, that was hilarious. We'd have this thing where we'd like party on the weekends, and then there's this like, it's called second lobby. It was on the second floor where all the rooms were, but it was just like a little lobby area with a small TV, a couple couches. We'd go in there kind of all hungover and just talk about the crazy things that happened over the weekend. And that was one of the most fun bonding experiences ever, because everyone was just in the same like rotting phase after drinking, but they were still having a good time, just talking about what happened over the weekend, getting everyone updated. Tons more private stories that I can't share on here, but that I could tell people in person for sure. And it did make me a better man in pretty much every single aspect. I learned how to lift weights in the gym. Like I said, leadership experience, social skills. It buffed out my resume when I still wanted to operate in the 9-to-5 world. I had plenty of stories and things to work with and resume items to go over. So it made me a better man in every single aspect. I had critical thinking skills I didn't have before. My mind was on a different path than I would have been without all the support. My body was obviously better hitting the gym, and my social skills were off the charts as well. Talked to plenty of girls. So all those experiences just got me to where I was out of college, and then where I was out of college got me to where I was the next year, and where I was the next year got me to where I am today. Just going along that line. So everything happens for a reason. Every single thing that has happened in my life has been like a domino falling on the next item. And that's why I can't get complained if anything bad happens to me. Like I can't get mad, because I just know that that's just part of the dominoes falling that have got, like, I can connect everything that has happened to me in my life going back to college with like a connection. It's never random. Something happens, one door closes, another door opens. Because I met this guy in my fraternity, I was able to open up this other opportunity that just happened to be right at the right time. Plus, not to mention, there's a network of alumni all across the country that have my Greek letters that shared my college experience, maybe at other colleges, right? But it's kind of this like brotherhood type of thing where it's like, okay, if someone has your same letters, you give them the secret handshake and you have some mutual respect. So I could go on LinkedIn and find a bunch of people that were in my fraternity right now, and maybe open up some opportunities there. So definitely made me a better man. Definitely would recommend it for people going to college. I'm not going to be one of the guys that says never go to college. College is bad. College. A lot of people in like the entrepreneurial space want to preach that, but really at the end of the day, like, it was good. I don't regret it. I do wish that I knew a little bit more about this stuff 4 years earlier than I did, because I didn't really find out about all this stuff till after college. If I was working on this stuff through college, I'd be way farther ahead than I am right now. But like I said, the domino effect is just nothing. I am where I'm supposed to be because of the experiences, because of the life I've had. So can't complain about it. I'm a better man because I joined my fraternity, and because I had that experience, and because I went to college and had a great time. Have plenty of stories, like I said, that I can't share here. So if you want to hear some of those stories, I do share those with the people in Lifestyle Ascension. If you've seen any of the bios of the YouTube videos that I post up, it's just a free Discord. You can join Lifestyle Ascension. And we're really just aiming to do exactly this, become a better man in every single aspect of life. So if there's any aspect of life that you feel like you still want to improve in, or need some support in, or want some guidance, or not even just guidance, just you want a community, want accountability, it's basically like a virtual fraternity that you can join and get feedback on stuff. And we're going to be doing some really cool stuff with it here pretty soon. So if you want to hear some of those stories, you can pop in, and we can hit both of these, kill two birds with one stone. So appreciate it. Let's freaking go. I'm happy to be pumping these out. This has been an absolute blast, and I'm excited. I'm excited for some of you to ask about some more stories that I've had, because I want to tell them, but I can't say them here. You'll understand once I tell them to. But yeah, you can't say that on YouTube. But yeah, hit me up. Join Lifestyle Ascension below. Instagram Ascension is also linked below. My Instagram is also linked below. If you want anything, you can DM me on Instagram, and I'll give you whatever context you need. I'll answer your DMs, and as long as I don't see it's tucked in a message request, we'll get to it pretty quick. So appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Let's go.